Good evening. Welcome to For the Record. A historic event took place in May this year when the paramount chief of the Mburimba Confederacy, the Maramambale Naroko Tuinriketi, Rote Mumu Vuikamba Kepa, the Tuinodo, Ratui Soandamundamu, and other chiefs and the people of Rewa performed the traditional ceremony of Vaka Tokayada, declaring the descendants of the Gurmit era, Indians who came to Fiji as indentured laborers, as their people, and bestowing on them collectively the Idhavuti or title of Luvendra Naratu. The event has been described by some as perhaps the most important act of reconciliation the country has ever seen. And this evening we talked to the key people who made the event happen, the Tuinodo Ratui Soandamdamu, Shashi Kiran, the founder and executive director of the Foundation for Rural Integrated Enterprises and Development, commonly known as FRIEND, as well as Dr. Johnny Hawea, who is also the associate director from FRIEND. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So the Vaka Tokayada event, when it took place, caught many by surprise, came out of the blue for some, given what some of the divisive and political debates and exchanges we've been having. Yeah? So let's try to start from the beginning. How did the ceremony happen, and when does the story begin? Shashi.
Thank you, Stanley. The story began, as we all understand, 2000 was a very painful time for us. And I was very involved where we saw a lot of violence, evictions. I actually went around Fiji. And coming from my perspective, you know, the Indo perspective, I was seeing the victims as Indians. And of course, you get angry and all that. And I was very fortunate that there was a peace process led by Father Frank Hoa. And he invited me into that, and I was very cynical and skeptical. But that gave me a window into what the indigenous Fijians were going through at that particular time. And I went.
How was that?
We actually, ECRIA is an economical based. So they were able to go out into Savasavo, into many of these places where they invited people into a talking space.
So people from both sides?
No, largely indigenous people.
Okay.
So rebels in Savasavo, for example, the indigenous leaders, the military command that was overtaken. And as a facilitator, I sat in those spaces. And I was the other. But for the first time, I heard the anger and the pain, and I didn't understand the language properly. But I understood that these people are also hurting and aching, which didn't make sense to me, because here we were coming from a point of view that we were the victims. And here I was hearing that they were the victims. And that it was an extremely emotional, traumatic time for all of us. And through that process, I went around the island and facilitated in some spaces, but mostly I was the focus for the anger, the other ethnic group who was in the room. And I learned things that I never knew, the pains and aches that I never knew. And it opened a new realm for me that, you know, when we stereotype, we say exactly the same thing about the other. If one says the other's bad, you know, in whatever form, even a child, we scare our children as, oh, the Fijian men will take you away, and Fijians say the Indian men will take you away. So we realized over time that, you know, they are two-faced, they are two-faced. You know, when we started doing stereotype, we realized there was so much pain in both communities, and both communities felt like a victim. So when we started FRIEND, all our programs, we started integrating them, and economic was one of the key things we thought we'll start bringing people together, because we realized that it was the stereotype that kept dividing us at that particular time. And when we started bringing people together, we had started looking for common ground. And despite all the things that we're coming together to do all the economic activity, there was something still missing. And we had heard lots of stories when I started searching how the indigenous people were really, really helpful in the early days to our ancestors. And vice versa, they had very deep relationships. But one thing that caught us was the ship Syria that had come and was wrecked in Nasilai. And we knew that the people of the land had rescued our ancestors 100 years ago, when our ancestors probably looked so strange.
In Nasilai and Rewa, so that was the path that led to Rewa. If I can bring Ratu So in now, the story goes back to 2000, a time when many chiefs and many Fijians, for that matter, were forced to take sides. I mean, everyone was forced to take a side. At that time, there were different political views. Many who had views then have different views now. What was your stand in 2000 when the political upheavals took place? I mean, many Fijians went into parliament then to support the cause. What was your view of what took place at that time?
Mr. Stanley. Na bagro nundul, ora bodur kinaku. Ewa le basho le botur tigina ona.
Of the GCC.
GCC. Che mi posso che sarjara basho le botur na ngoni salada ba me merlo sergi che ne beshitiu. Patana se quella sangaiti che merra ero binaga na beshitiu. Me sergi na ku. Mera oira tala mera mbuta parliament mi sarangwa le vanonra itigetigo kunindona mera kunibisu ia oira na bogadoro tiganaku dor keni wasiliba ra leonia sanoria
From North to?
No bono no me bakani bono reo na bono tigabuki na Nationalist Party and the kilab nagato utagana sa sagas butonok. Jadi mana leonia sanoria na ngona na ngona bodo kinaku kimu tutu do sarana wana sana ko kimu sali tawar ci parliament o ci mera parliament sa era no leoni tikina sarra ci to do parliament o do suana mbasse bodo na kabi o do ngol parliament do leader do ngol ngona bitarno.
So you were inside parliament?
Yeah, o ci parliament.
Yeah.
Via capito dove suona ambasciatore votura o un dungo al parlamento.
Were you supportive of the event?
Yeah, come me pakani nationalist te buto me rawa, come to dona rawa che ni mu padia.
So you were supportive of the event of the 2000 coup, and now we've come to this, which we will discuss this process where you've embraced the descendants of indentured laborers. But if I can just go back before we go into discussing very quickly, if you can just talk about, do you think, as you are a member of the GCC, do you think now that the chiefs could have done more to bring the races together, to create more unity at that time?
Sangaba ka koko saranga na mbasile votura ka mekunia do ndone ndundui. Sanga sarabo le mbasile votura ka mekunia do ndone ndundui. Bana itoke batigera na kanda India na ngono ya. Mbagro nundu.
All right. Shashi, if we can pick up the story on the journey, how did that continue then from 2000 with the events? Then you were appointed to the events of the Syria. How did you, from a person who supported the 2000 coup in a province, very nationalistic, the stronghold of Fijian nationalism, some would say, how did your path lead to Rewa and to the Tuinodo?
I guess we had both suffered, and it's very easy to remember what the other did in a negative space. So for Nasilai, we went to Rokotuimbao first, because we thought it was in Tailevu province. And he said, that story doesn't belong to us, the story belongs to Rewa. So we had to officially go and approach Rokotuindraketi. And we very tentatively approached her. And Gonimara Mambale was very, very generous. She gave us time. And we said, we don't want to come into your political space. We want you to meet you outside. And she actually granted it without even knowing who we were.
Right.
And she said, yes, the story is in Rewa, and you'll have to approach Turanga Tuinodo.
All right, we'll leave it there. And we'll talk about your approach to Turanga Tuinodo after the break. You're watching For the Record. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching For the Record. Now, you approached the Marambale Rokotuindraketi, who told you, go and see the Tuinodo. And what were you trying to achieve when you decided to make a presentation to him?
We wanted to, first of all, just go and find out what had happened and whether we could, for the first time, express our gratitude to the Vanua for something they had done to our ancestors, to open a pathway of some positive dialogue. And we asked Dr. Chone Hawea to help us in this, and he approached the Provincial Council, through whom we eventually reached Turanga Tuinodo. And we took a small delegation, and we presented our tambua to Turanga Tuinodo. And even though we were just going to find out, when he received the tambua, he said, "This is a very old tambua. It's a very old relationship you've come to renew. You belong to us and we belong to you. We've heard," he said, "we've heard it for the last 3 generations." And that was something that shocked us. We didn't believe, like, it was too hard to believe. Are we hearing it right, kind of thing, Then we went to Navilada, where they had done the burial. Everybody, young and old, was saying the same thing. "Oh, we were always told that if you see Indians, they are your people. They belong to you."
Right.
It was just too much of a shock. Like you said, this is a nationalist province. And here we were being told that we belong to this particular province.
Right. If I can bring Dr. Chone in, if you can just talk about the nuance of what the meaning of the old tambua, or the presentation. They say it's an old relationship. What was being said there?
Thank you, Stan. Relationships is the core of the Itoke way of life. All our systems are evolved around relationships, or the Fijian word for it is vivekani. And so we are related to God, we are related to the environment and the resources, and we are related to each other, one way or another. And so in our relationships are symbolically represented in the ceremonies that we have. And the tambua is one such element that is important in our ceremonies. It has that, it is of highest value. And so whenever we present a tambua or a kava, Angona, we are narrating our history, and we are narrating the history of our relationships. And whatever the event is, it will tell the story of the relationships. And in this case, it's the relationship between Nodo and those that met their fate on Nasilai Reef that day. And so that's why when the tambua was presented, automatically the Ratu, Turanga Tuinodo, realized that this is representing that relationship, and that's why he mentioned this is an old kamunanga. It represents an old relationship that we've had. You've just come here to renew, and we belong to each other.
And you accepted the tambua despite your political views that you had on supporting the issues in 2000.
Nomunya vingoma na tambua na singa onia vingoma tiko ina nomuni kila talitunga ni ina Ronondolu onia tiko talenga ina lomani nationalist party davana nomuni wamala
Daga Mr. Stanley nanga ona sara tutu berkira wara kamlanga ratu sa barita tika ni ratu ronga ni rambulu tika no do ira na alenga mai pana ponda ni waka na Syria na ko maslay ya na italono ara ndo talota mai ni mangasi na ona ponda ki na Syria na ona ponda ki na Syria vindur magi bina sarjiga na barra bil bonono mbara be ara boge chicheki ni mangasi tu ke no retiti
Right.
na ira todo na ya wani matera da diri mo ibara Syria ra kasa mo ibai bonua vitaraka randeu talota ko ira mangasi ni ra talota ko ira na ndul makira ni talona ndio tika mani talona ni ndona mata tamata rangai rida bondua na no sa diri mo sara matitu sama ni tukuna turanga na ona na tuno na ona bera buiti bonua bera limbu sambulu sara babinak
Right.
sini ndone bulu me bulu kine ruosha tulu
All in single graves, eh?
single grave rambulu bina saranga ramaru re oira na tobimati ira na bimbi rage komeno koro rage komo bonua no me ngarabi ngona sara bulu bina kina saranga vaka uisupa ratombala taki maten tu pakolo na ona ya sa Na ona sartu mai tu bitu bokiro. Ebra ka ngausa pakasambata ka batira na turo no ka kimati ka bata. No ira na sama imbula sara mai ngele chikini bonono. Kini mambale sara ta mundo no ngele tu ni bonono.
So now they're part of the people of Rewa.
Yeah, sa kini mambale na viokani. Na viokani batira na bana wangarishiri ira na India batana bonono. Na viokani ko shitiku mai na ona.
Okay.
Tiku mai na ona.
Shashi, you were part of the process with the. He was supportive. Have you seen the same type of support from the people of Rewa, the other chiefs of Rewa, to the process?
Absolutely. I think there are two different things here. One, like 2000 was about certain issues which we still need to dialogue. There were insecurities. The other is the actual relationships. And that Tambua immediately, as soon as Turangatu Nodo, accepted us. Nodo accepted us, and it was quite amazing when we said we would like to do thank you to the Vanua of Nodo for what they have done for our ancestors at a time, Turangatu Nodo immediately said it'll go to the chiefs of Rewa. And on Rewa Day we saw the whole province not only adopt us.
This was Rewa Day
last year. And then in Vakatokayada, we've also had various interactions with the chiefs of Rewa. And they have sat down and have discussions with our people about our issues, our concerns, our fears. So the commitment has been absolutely amazing. And one thing they've said, just like we know very little about the indigenous culture and we unknowingly disrespect it, they have said the same, that we don't understand enough about your history and we don't understand enough about your culture. And that was really big and very, humbling to hear that from the chiefs.
All right. After the break, we will discuss the ceremony itself, how we move from these discussions to the ceremony, and what does the Vakatokayada and the providing of the Idavuti mean. You're watching For the Record. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching For the Record. Now let's talk about the ceremonies that were involved in this process, this pioneering process, some would say unprecedented process. Now there's two processes that took place, the Vakatokayada and then the providing of the Vuti. So Dr. Chon, if you can explain what those two ceremonies mean in essence.
Just a little bit of a correction. It was a Rewa Day adoption,
right?
Then the Vakatokayada ceremony. So after the Turangana Tuinodo had accepted that Kamunanga on that day, the delegation thought that they would present a gratitude to the Ratu, Turangana Tuinodo. And Ratu said, well, in our system, you can't share the gratitude to me because there's somebody above me. That's the relationship we have. And so the position above the Ratu is, of course, the Ngone Marambala, the paramount chief. And so the approach was made to the Ngone Marambale to present the gratitude to her. But she said, me and Ratu Isoa and the chiefs are old. If you do it to us, this will be forgotten. The narrative will be forgotten. We only have a few years. So they decided, and because coincidentally, the Rewa Day, which is a 3 interval, happened to be approaching in the next 3 months from that day. So they decided that this gratitude ceremony was going to be held on Rewa Day. And it was supposed to be a straightforward gratitude presentation by descendants of Girmitia. The Rewa chiefs, usually, as Rewa always do, they come up with surprising approaches. And on that day, they presented a kamunanga to formally adopt the people of descendants of Girmitia into the Vanua of Rewa. So what it is, Stanley, is an adoption into this system of relationship that we have. And so they are now belonging to the relationship that Rewa has with all other Itauke everywhere. And whatever relationships that Nodo or Rewa has with Tailevu, Kandavu, Nandronga, they share. They share the same relationship systems now.
So who made the decision? The chiefs of Rewa?
The chiefs of Rewa.
Now,
and in consultation with the Vanua, when Ratu had made that decision, Ratu informed us that he had to go through all the district to ensure that they agree with the process.
Okay. How can one guarantee that the other Vanuas, the other provinces, will respect this or recognize this Idavuti that was provided in the Vakatokada, the Idavuti of Luvendra Naratu? Yeah. What is there that says that allow for them to recognize this?
So that was the reason they said the first step is to adopt. The second is to make sure that they have a formal ceremonial name, title. That will ensure that the narrative will be respected and will remain sacred and can be used in our ceremonies everywhere.
And will continue for generations.
And will continue until generations to come. And so that was why the need for the next ceremony, which is the Vakatokayada. And that was planned, and in May this year we had the Vakatokayada ceremony. So in all ceremonies where a descendant of Girmitia is present, in the Itauke relationship system, the narrative will be, this is from the Luvendra Naratu. And so they have a root in our Vevekani, in our relationship.
And this is going back from the Syria.
This is going back to the
tragedy.
To the Syria.
So concerns were raised by some on whether this adoption and bringing in of outsiders, so to speak, whether it would affect the Volani Kaumbula, which is a very treasured and sensitive part of the Itauke. Yeah? Does this have any implications?
No. We came in, what we really appreciated, like I said, we didn't even come with this agenda, but what we are always Bulangi or outsider unless we had an identity in the Vanua. We've been given an identity in a sense of belonging, and we are quite happy with it. And we understand the indigenous people also don't own land. They are protectors of land, and now we have the same obligation to it. So we have no intention of going into any VKB or any indigenous system. The issue of land has also been raised, and quite ironically, our ancestors who came, they sort of claimed a piece of land by themselves. When Ratu Turangaratu Inodo at that time gave them a burial place, that place has been left sacred for more than 100 years. Nobody farms it and so on. So they were placed on the land, and we have connection to the land. But other than that, we have no intention of creating any insecurity.
Having that roots, eh? But do you think, what about those that say that there's concerns that having this could weaken the Itauke identity or make them more insecure in coming to a space that's traditionally and exclusively, some would say, has always been the domain of the Itauke?
Adoption is nothing new in the Itauke system. We have formally adopted Tongans, we have formally adopted Samoans, we have formally adopted people of the Kiribati, Solomon Islands, and it's nothing new. What it is not an adoption into land ownership. It's
or into the Volani Kaumbula.
Or to the Volani Kaumbula, because the Volani Kaumbula came up in the land commission to make sure that people are identified and they can be paid lease money accordingly. That's when the Volani Kaumbula came up. But our system of Vevekani existed before the Volani Kaumbula, and the adoptions have been existing.
It precedes the Volani Kaumbula.
It precedes the Volani Kaumbula. So this is something that is rooted in a system that existed before colonials, and it's a system of relationships, and it's in a subsistence economy before money was introduced
Right.
to Fiji.
So there is a tendency in Fiji, I mean, there will be some who said to see things in political terms. They will say, oh, this is benefits this political side because these people are with this political party and these people are with this political party. So, and elections are coming up, and people are looking at whether this is a political, a political game, a political agenda being at play. How or what do you think about this that makes it transcends politics and should not be seen as a political issue?
Well, none of the people involved are standing in the next elections. I think I can safely say that. And we started this in 2010, 11, 12. 2010, 11, 12, we did a lot of work. 2012, we had all the conversations with Ratu Chonim and Rai Vivi, and we knew about REWA, but we stopped because a campaign had started for 2013 elections. And we waited for election and the dust to settle before we picked up again in 14, 15 again. So this has been something that we've been doing since 2000. And if you look at all Friends' work, we've been, so there's no politics involved in this.
So no politics, it's nothing to do with anything
Any
that's
political
coming
party.
up. Yeah, you're watching For the Record, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching For the Record. We're talking about the peace process that was held in Rewa, the reconciliation ceremony, the adoption ceremony. Now I'll just get a question to the Tuinodo about people seeing this as a political agenda. What does the relationship mean for him and Nodo that made him come to this decision? And how committed to the process are the people of Nodo and the chiefs of Rewa?
Mr. Stanley, usatukunoti lebiwakani setikabu mai na ona arambulukina na bota pana Syria arambulu mai nodo ara mai ngele tikene bono nodo na ona sutu saya tu nikino ko mertu le vangarai ni na bono arambulu tikina na irana ara bota mai pana Syria kia sangai ki me pakila na bono nodo po saborita ka bir bono nodo le biwakani ko se tikabu mai na ona non de biwakani o kanda nodo wate irana wekanda na India ko ara ngole mai kasa pana Syria ara mai bulo nodo ni sara mai ngeli chikini bono nodo ana biwakani ko tikabu mai kia sini ke mai tikabu no ngono te ni kino ko na le sipsip tikabu mai kia biwakani kini mo mbala na ni mo boyo me sara mai le ni bono nodo Sara pakatoka ta kemeru libena ratu ya butike chiga mai para bioka ni sitekubu mai na arambulukina na mbare bimeno.
Right. So Dr. Vijay Naidu writes that this belongingness that Ratu just explained, offered by the Rewa province, it has considerable symbolic, emotional, spiritual, and material significance. So now you've been accepted by the Vanua as part of the Vanua. Now that you've been part of it, and being part of the Vanua is as Dr. Chon is a two-way thing. It's a reciprocal relationship. So what are the obligations and responsibilities of the Indo-Fijian community in this relationship?
Like you said, we have been dying to belong. All our narratives, all academics will say. So now the onus is on us to learn more, because we've sort of been living on different tracks. We need to understand a little bit better about how the indigenous system works, how the Vanua works. One thing we've realized is that the Itoke people do not own anything, but they are protectors and they look after the resources, whether it's land, ocean, and so on. And it is our responsibility also to work with our Vanua in ensuring that there's protection of the resources. But I think initially we have to do a lot of learning to be able to do our part.
Okay, so that's an important part. Now the other important part to this, from the Itoke perspective, is the blessing given by the major churches to what took place. they always talk about the key aspects of Itaukei culture is the church, the vanua, and the matintu, the government. So I saw the Rotemumu quoted Pope Francis at the event, saying to extend hospitality to all, so that at the end of the day we all have a sense of belonging and genuine belief that it's the same spirit of human kindness and God's love for us all which will be the hallmark of ceremony to govern future relationships. And then it was also blessed by the Methodist Church in Fiji, represented by the Northern District, Northern Circuit Minister, Reverend Israeli Turanganingali, who preached the parable of the Good Samaritan, and the message of being good neighbors, reaching out to people who are not of your ethnic group, and love for all. So how important was it, Dr. Chwane, having the support of the churches in the Itaukei context?
Like I mentioned before, that our relationship system involves how we are related to God. In the days preceding Christianity, we had our gods. Then the Christianity was introduced, so that became the pillar of our relationship with God. And that is very important to us, that our leaders in this relationship to God recognize and also narrate the same thing, and thereby the followers are led in the same pathway. And so it is very, very significant that the major church leaders recognize this as an integral part of our way of life as Christians within the Itaukei relationship system.
Now, the other part of the pillar of the Itaukei, of course, is the government. Now that the vanua has traditionally, in the official sense of the vanua, accepted this process, does the government need to also get involved and recognize it, so to speak? Because nothing like this is, well, it's for the Gurmit descendants, more or less, has sort of taken place.
We had approached the government through the provincial office in Rewa right from day one. And the Rokotui Rewa and the office of the Rewa provincial office has been involved in all the ceremonies. The permanent secretary for the Ministry of Itaukei was there during the Rewa day, and he had also spoken on that day, saying that the Ministry of Itaukei has taken note of this event and thanked the Vanua of Rewa for taking lead in the process. And as we all know, government is so committed in a lot of development projects, and to have the Vanua take ownership of a project from the start is already a pathway to sustainability. Like in all other projects, if the people of the land are not taking ownership of it, it will not end up anywhere. Here in this case, they are the initiators, and so they have owned it from the start. And government has shown that it will facilitate.
And committed,
yes.
So it's a wholesome process involving all the stakeholders. You're watching For the Record. We'll be back. Welcome back. You're watching For the Record. We're talking about the Rewa, the peace process and the reconciliation ceremony that has taken place. So some have written that the gesture by the Vanua of Rewa is deeply transformational and significant in the context of Itaukei Indo-Fijian relations. And some are saying it could represent a new era in race relations in Fiji. There's hope that leaders on both sides will use it as a way to, we know the government's, the party's been trying to talk about coming together as one, so to speak. Do you think that this can be achieved, and what can be done to move this forward, Dr. Chwane?
I think one of the latest successes or achievements is an invitation recently by the Vanua Mba, the chiefs of the province of Mba have invited an extension of the Rewa peace process into the Vanua Mba festival.
Okay.
previously called the Andi Salu Salu, and they've revived it, and it's a 3-day festival. One of those 3 days will be exclusively this event, an extension of the Reo peace process, coming together of descendants of Kirmetia, the Luvendrena Ratu, who have lived in the Vanua Mba, being part of the
So you can
festival.
see it moving on to
So it's moving
the
on
momentum
into
is,
another big province.
because
in Fiji.
after all, Shashi, this is a major historical event, but no matter how unprecedented and pioneering and transformational, one event alone will not bring this issue to be resolved. What more needs to happen?
I think leaders are taking their role. As each individual, we have our own role, because it's very easy, we've grown up in stereotypes, small kids, what are they called in school, in buses, different religions say, don't hang out with non-believers. So we have been drumming our children with all these stereotypes. When an accident, we ask which ethnic group, So we need to start asking ourselves, how are we stereotyping? If two same ethnic brothers fight, it's an argument. But if two different ethnic brothers fight, it becomes racial. So we need to start asking ourselves, what is racial and what's not, and how can I contribute to peace? There are bad elements in both ethnic groups, but we tend to paint the other always with one brush.
So these stereotypes, we've had it for decades, for probably 100 years or more, and it continues to make people more fearful and suspicious of each other.
Yeah.
Dr. Chone, how can we change or remove these negative stereotypes?
Education will play a big role. We are thankful that universities are coming in, trying to see how this process can be included in education curricula, and the secondary school in Nodo and Nausori, Vunimono High School and Nodo High School have been working together, and education at all levels, within the conventional education and also within the grassroots education platforms. As much as we can, we should start sharing our mannerisms, our do's and don'ts in our culture. The more we understand about each other, the less the stereotypes will be, and hopefully it will transition out and into thin air and disappear.
All right. I'll leave the last word for Tuinodo. Rewa has led the way on this, from hotbed and stronghold of nationalism to embracing this message. So what is your message to the other provinces and the other chiefs on the issue of race relations in the country?
Mr. Stanley. Tomoto we are vi ke na matambosini momo ni bono botura ngamba. Kimsa rongoto tigana maliola na kavi. E kala o lebun sa pagatora na bono botura ngamba. Paka sa pagatora na bono botura ngara. Pina lebuna na kena pagante tritika na bioka ni bono na bioka ni botura. So tukuna na Luvendrena Ratu, so ira na ngole mo idada po girimiti, na nonda bono bisa kalibichi kira po bibinda ka bikamundo na momo ni bono po turo ba pina wali. Na kene karua kemuni na turanga mbale na boni nonda bono ebite ni biasana. Tokara bono nui ni kalo sa ka rukalo kinongo na bono rewa kina bono omba. Tokara po nunu ni na kalo to kina. Mero ni na pa ndite kina bioka ni go ni bioka ni be turanga ni bioka ni po no ni bioka ni bolutu. Tokara po nunu ni na bisu tagana rai bisu tagana pa kasama kenda ni tambata mata. E tambulu te bite na ngone ndai me pa ndite ka. Non to no non to lutu ke non to bioka ni.
Naka Tuinodo, Shashi, Dr. Chone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me on For the Record. Naka. That was For the Record for the evening. We hope you enjoyed the show and will join us again next Sunday. From me and the team, good night.